The night my son and his wife told me to leave. Clara's words cut like a blade. We do not need your pension cash anymore. Just go die somewhere else. I should have been crushed. I should have begged them not to throw me into the cold. Instead, I laughed. My voice was calm when I said, "Sweetheart, did you even read whose name is on that lottery ticket?" Her face turned pale. Ethan, my only son, just stared as if I had spoken a foreign language. That was the moment they realized the truth. Now I will tell you how we reached that delicious turn of fate. My name is Martha Collins. Most people in Cedar Grove call me Marty. I am 67. I am widowed. I never imagined my life would become a story strangers whispered about in grocery lines. 3 weeks before that confrontation, I walked into Bell's Market on Maple Street. For 30 years, I had bought the same lottery ticket every Friday. The clerk, young Jacob Bell, knew my numbers by heart. 7, 14, 23, 31, 45, and Powerball 18. I smiled and handed him my $5 bill. Those numbers were not just digits. They were pieces of my life pressed onto paper. 7 for the day Richard and I married. 14 for Ethan's birthday. 23 for our wedding anniversary. 31 for the house we raised him in. 45 years for the years Richard and I shared before cancer took him. Ethan graduated from high school. Full of promise. Cross your fingers for me. Jacob. He grinned. Always do. Mrs. Collins. You are due for some good luck. I tucked the ticket into my worn leather wallet. Right beside Richard's driver's license I still could not throw away. Then I pulled my scarf tight against the Iowa wind and walked home. Clara's silver SUV was already in the driveway, shining like a trophy. Through the kitchen window I saw her pacing with her phone. Her nails flashed as she gestured. Her voice sharp, probably talking about a vacation she could not afford. I stepped inside through the back door, as I had every day for 2 years. "Is that you?" "Martha," she called, sounding annoyed. "Yes, it's me," I replied. What I wanted to add was, "Sorry for existing in your perfect house." When Richard died, Ethan and Clara's offer for me to move in felt like kindness. "You should not stay alone in that old house," Ethan said after the funeral. "We have plenty of room." At the time I was grieving. The thought of being near family sounded like comfort. Clara even called it our guest room. But what guest pays $1,300 each month from her pension? What guest cooks, cleans, and babysits for free? At first, I told myself it was temporary. I cooked dinner. I folded laundry. I watched their children on weekends. It gave me purpose. But slowly the truth showed itself. I was not a guest. I was not family. I was live-in help who paid for the privilege. One evening, Clara entertained her friends in the living room. I served drinks and carried trays of appetizers. As I cleared glasses, I overheard her laugh. "It is perfect," she told her friend. "Martha covers her own expenses. She does the chores. She watches the kids. It is like monetizing your mother-in-law." The tray trembled in my hands, but I said nothing. I carried the glasses back to the sink, my face burning. That night something inside me hardened. Still, I kept buying my ticket every Friday, whispering to Richard that maybe one day, our numbers would mean more than memories. By late November, Clara announced she and Ethan would build me a basement suite. "You will have your own entrance, your own kitchenette." She spread drawings on the dining table. Ethan stood behind her, nodding, avoiding my eyes. "What if I do not want to move to the basement?" I asked. Her smile froze. "Well, Martha, we think it might be better for everyone. Or perhaps you could explore other options." Other options. At 67, with only $50 left after their expenses, what options did I have? A dingy studio downtown, or a 2-year wait for senior housing? They knew it. They had me trapped. That Friday I walked to Bell's Market as always. Snow fell heavy, coating the sidewalks. I held onto that lottery ticket like a secret weapon. Jacob wished me luck again. I almost whispered back, "If only you knew." Back at the house, I overheard Clara on the phone with the contractor. Make it the cheapest option. It does not need to be fancy. It is just for one elderly person. That was what I had become in their eyes. Not Martha, who raised Ethan and buried Richard. Just one elderly person. I sat by the upstairs window, staring at the falling snow. I held my purse close, inside, folded and waiting. Was the slip of paper that would soon change everything. Friday night came, quiet and heavy with snow. I was in bed reading when the late news began. The announcer smiled at the camera and said, "Tonight's Powerball jackpot is $53 million. The winning numbers are 7, 14, 23, 31, 45, and Powerball 18. I froze. I thought I had misheard. I rewound the broadcast and listened again. The numbers glowed on the screen. 7, 14, 23, 31, 45, 18. They were my numbers. The ones I had carried for 30 years. My hands shook as I pulled my wallet from the nightstand. There, tucked behind Richard's license, was my ticket. The same sequence. The same miracle. I sat in silence for a long time, clutching the paper. After years of hope and $5 bills, it had finally happened. Not just a small prize. 53 million. My heart pounded. I wanted to run downstairs and shout the news. But then I remembered where I was. I was in my son's house, paying rent, cooking meals, preparing to be sent to the basement like unwanted storage. And suddenly, I knew. This news was mine to hold, at least for a little while. I hid the ticket back in my wallet and turned off the lamp. Sleep would not come. I lay awake, whispering to Richard. We did it. Love. We finally did it. The next morning began like every Saturday. The grandchildren, Ellie and Noah, argued over cartoons in the living room. Clara rushed through the kitchen in yoga clothes, keys jingling in her hand. Martha, I am heading to class and then the salon. Can you handle the kids? Of course, I said, the same way I always did. Ethan was locked in his office, glued to his laptop. I made pancakes, poured juice. I tried to keep the morning moving. My plan was to keep quiet until I could speak with a lawyer on Monday. But fate had other ideas. While tidying the kitchen, Clara picked up my purse from the counter. She was searching for coupons I had clipped from the newspaper. Her voice carried down the hall. Martha, where did you put those cereal coupons? Side pocket. I called back. A moment later, her tone changed. Sharp. Breathless. Oh my God. What is this? I turned and saw her standing frozen. A slip of paper in her hand. My lottery ticket. Her face had gone pale. Did you buy a ticket last night? She asked. Yes. I buy one every week. Same numbers. She was already pulling out her phone. Fingers flying. Do you even know what the winning numbers were? Her voice trembled as she scrolled. Oh my God. Ethan. Her scream carried through the house. Ethan came rushing from his office. Shirt half buttoned. Hair sticking up. What is it? What happened? The ticket. Clara stammered, thrusting it toward him. Look at the numbers. He studied the ticket. Then the screen on her phone. He compared them again and again, as if his eyes might be lying. This is real, he whispered. This is actually real. Ellie tugged at my sleeve. Grandma, are we rich now? Clara scooped her up, spinning her around. We are very rich. Sweetheart, we will never have to worry again. I sat quietly at the table, watching it unfold like a play on stage. Ethan's voice shook with excitement. We need to call a lawyer, and a financial advisor, and maybe an accountant. There are taxes to think about, and how to claim the money. Clara interrupted, her eyes shining. And we need to upgrade the basement plan. If we are millionaires, why settle for cheap cabinets? The basement. Even in the middle of their imagined fortune, they were still planning to move me underground. Actually, Clara said suddenly, her tone lifting with an idea. Maybe we should think bigger than the basement. With this kind of money, we could buy a bigger house, Something with a proper mother-in-law wing. Or, she smiled, maybe one of those nice senior communities, the ones with activities and medical care. It would be perfect for you. Martha. I looked at her carefully. There it was. The money was not going to bring us closer. It was going to buy them a more elegant way to get rid of me. Ethan nodded quickly. That is a great idea. Mom, you would probably be happier with people your own age. And now we can afford the very best. They stood together, dreaming aloud about my future. A future they assumed they controlled. I let them talk until their voices blurred into the background. Then I cleared my throat. There is just one detail you should probably address. They both turned. Impatient. Like parents interrupted by a child. The ticket is in my name. Silence. Heavy and cold. This was not the silence of joy. This was the silence of horror. The silence of realizing a terrible assumption had just crumbled. What do you mean? Clara asked slowly. I reached out my hand. After a long moment, Ethan placed the ticket back in my palm. I bought this with my own money. I have played these numbers for 30 years. That makes it mine. Clara's face flushed red. Then white. Then red again. But we are family. She stammered. That money changes everything for all of us. No. I said. Standing. It changes everything for me. Their faces showed the dawning realization. The maid. The babysitter. The woman they had planned to push into the basement. She was now the one holding $53 million. I slipped the ticket carefully back into my wallet. For the first time in years, I felt the weight of power shift in the room. The house was still humming with shock. Clara paced the kitchen. Her phone pressed tight to her ear. She whispered to friends. To her sister. Maybe even to a realtor. Over and over. I heard her say, 53 million. Yes. Million. We won. Ethan sat at the table staring at the ticket as though it might vanish. This is unbelievable. He muttered. Absolutely unbelievable. He looked at me. Mom. We need to be smart. We cannot make a single move without a plan. I folded my hands. What sort of plan? Ethan. A financial plan. He said, his voice quickening. We need lawyers. We need accountants. We need to decide how to invest. We need to think about taxes and trusts, and maybe even charities. Clara hung up her phone and slid into the chair across from me. Her smile was wide but tight at the edges. Martha. This is bigger than anything you have ever dealt with. You will need help managing it. That is what families do. I looked at her carefully. Help. That was the word she chose. The same woman who charged me $1,300 each month for the privilege of folding her laundry. The same woman who planned to send me to the basement. Now she wanted to help. I kept my tone even. I appreciate your concern. Clara. But I have already decided I will speak with my own lawyer on Monday. Her smile faltered. Your own lawyer? Why would you do that when we can manage it together? Because, I said, the ticket is mine. And the decision is mine. The words dropped into the air like stones. Ethan leaned forward. His voice urgent. Mom. Be reasonable. You have never handled this kind of money. It is complicated. It is dangerous. One wrong move and it could all be gone. Clara nodded quickly. Exactly. 70% of lottery winners end up broke within 5 years. It is in all the articles. You cannot take that risk. I raised an eyebrow. And what do you suggest? She brightened. Already prepared. We could set up a joint account. The 3 of us. That way, the money is protected. And you will never have to worry about paperwork or taxes. We can handle all that. A joint account. They were not even subtle. I almost laughed. But I held it in. Instead, I sipped my coffee and said softly, that is generous of you. But I think I will keep the ticket where it belongs. With me. The silence thickened. Clara's nails tapped against the table. Ethan ran his hands through his hair. Mom. You are not hearing us. He said. This is too much for one person. Especially at your age. At my age. The words stung. But I kept my composure. I have been managing myself for 67 years. I think I can manage a little longer. Ellie's laughter floated in from the living room. Cartoons blared. The smell of pancakes still lingered in the air. But in that kitchen, the world had shifted. Clara tried again, her voice dropping into the polished tone she used at her marketing job. Martha, think of the stress. Think of the decisions. Do you really want to spend your golden years worrying about money? Let us take that burden from you. I leaned forward. Clara, I have spent the last 2 years paying you $1,300 every month. I have cooked your meals, folded your laundry, and watched your children. And you call that support? You call that family? Her mouth opened, but no sound came. Ethan reached for my hand, his voice low. Mom, we love you. We only want what is best. I pulled my hand back. Then, perhaps you should start by admitting what you have done. You turned me into your tenant. You treated me like hired help. And now you think winning this lottery makes me your investment. The words hit him harder than I expected. He looked down at the table, ashamed. Clara, though, did not flinch. Her jaw tightened. We are just trying to protect you. I stood, sliding the ticket safely back into my wallet. No. You are trying to protect yourselves. There is a difference. I walked to the doorway. Behind me, I heard Ethan's voice crack. Mom, please, do not make this harder than it has to be. I paused and looked back. You made it hard the day you decided to charge me rent in my own son's house. Now it is my turn to decide. The kitchen fell silent again. The only sound was the ticking of the clock on the wall. I went upstairs to my room. I closed the door and sat by the window. My purse clutched tight in my lap. Downstairs, their voices rose in frantic whispers, arguing over what to do next. But for the first time in years, I felt calm. I whispered to Richard, "Do you see? Love." They thought they had me trapped. But now, everything has changed. Sunday morning came cold and bright. Snow still covered the streets like a heavy blanket. But inside the house, tension crackled. Clara walked into the kitchen with her hair perfectly styled and a binder in her hands. "Good morning, Martha," she said sweetly. "I stayed up late doing research. Did you know most lottery winners end up broke within 5 years? She spread the binder open, highlighting statistics with a manicured finger. Bankruptcy, bad investments, family conflict. She smiled as if she were delivering salvation. "This is why we should manage the money together." Ethan joined her, his shirt wrinkled, his eyes hollow from no sleep. "Mom," he said, "this is bigger than you. We cannot risk mistakes. Let us protect you." I sipped my coffee slowly. "Protect me," I repeated. "Is that what you call charging me rent to live in your house?" Clara's smile stiffened. "That is not fair. We just want what is best." Before I could answer, a loud knock shook the door. Voices called from outside. "Mrs. Collins, can we have a word?" Clara rushed to the window. Her face went pale. 2 news vans were parked at the curb. Reporters huddled in the snow. Microphones raised. "How did they find us?" she whispered. Then she saw the Bell's Market logo on one of the jackets. Jacob. I realized. The sweet young clerk must have mentioned to someone that I played those numbers. Word traveled fast in a small town. By morning, the press had pieced it together. "Stay away from the door. Clara Hiss, do not talk to them. We need to control the story." But I was already moving toward the front steps. The cold air hit my face as cameras flashed. "Mrs. Collins, how does it feel to win $53 million? What will you do with the prize?" I stood tall, my hands steady. "I am grateful for this blessing," I said clearly. "And I intend to live independently. For the first time in 2 years, I will make my own choices." The reporters surged forward. "What do you mean?" "Mrs. Collins." I looked back at the house where Ethan and Clara hovered, their faces taut with panic. Then I faced the cameras again. "For 2 years, I have paid $1,300 a month to live in my son's house. I have cooked, cleaned, and cared for their children without pay. And when I became inconvenient, They planned to move me into the basement. Gasps spread through the crowd. Are you saying your family exploited you? Family should be about love and respect. I said firmly, not about business arrangements. And it is never too late to stand up for yourself. No matter your age. For a heartbeat, the street was silent except for the click of cameras. Then questions tumbled out again. But I had said what I came to say. I walked to my car. Each step slow and deliberate. As I passed the cluster of microphones, I noticed an older woman bundled in a thick coat standing near the reporters. Her eyes glistened. She whispered, "Good for you." In that moment, I realized this story was no longer just mine. It belonged to anyone who had ever been dismissed or devalued. Back inside, Clara slammed the door shut, fury on her face. "You made us look like monsters." Ethan rubbed his forehead, his voice tight. "Mom, why did you have to go public?" "Because the truth matters," I said, "and I will not hide anymore." That afternoon, I drove through the snow to David Harris's office, the quiet lobby, the scent of polished wood, the heavy leather chairs, all of it felt like refuge. David rose to greet me with a warm smile. "Congratulations, Martha. Richard would be proud." I sat, holding my purse tightly. I needed guidance. "Have you claimed the prize yet?" he asked. "Not yet. Tomorrow I will go to Des Moines." "Good," he said. "We will choose the annuity, protect you from taxes, and establish trusts. We can even discuss a charitable foundation, if that interests you." For the first time, someone spoke to me with respect, not as a burden, not as a fool. But then David's tone shifted. "There is something else. Something Richard asked me to reveal only if circumstances demanded it." My stomach tightened. "What circumstances?" "If your family ever tried to exploit you." He opened a thick file. "Your husband saw trouble coming. He hired an investigator months before his death. He discovered Ethan and Clara drowning in debt, credit cards, car loans, a mortgage underwater." I stared at the numbers. Richard had known, even as he faced the end. He had been protecting me, and more. David added, "A trust of $500,000. Richard placed it in your name. Untouchable. Growing with interest for 2 years. Tears blurred my vision. He knew. I whispered. He knew they would try." David leaned forward. "The question now is what you want to do." I straightened my shoulders, my voice steady. "I want a family meeting. Tonight. I want them to see everything laid bare." The sun had set by the time I returned home. The driveway glistened with ice, the windows glowing from the kitchen light. Inside, Ethan and Clara waited, both too eager, both too tense. They thought this meeting would be about damage control. They thought I would apologize for speaking to the press. But I had a folder in my purse, and I was ready. We sat in the living room. Clara set her laptop on the coffee table, the screen glowing with spreadsheets. She spoke first, her tone polished. "Rehearsed. Martha, we have prepared a comprehensive financial plan. It will guarantee your security while ensuring long-term growth." I let her speak. Charts and percentages filled the screen. Her hands moved as if she were presenting to a boardroom, not to her mother-in-law. When she finished, I placed my folder on top of her laptop and pushed it gently toward the center. "Before we discuss my finances," I said, "perhaps we should discuss yours." Clara blinked. Ethan frowned. "What do you mean?" "Mom." I opened the folder and pulled out the first document. "It is a complete financial profile of your household, commissioned by your father before he passed." Ethan's face drained of color. "Dad had us investigated. To protect me," I said. He was worried. And he was right. I slid the paper across the table. Credit card debt. $47,000 spread across 6 accounts. A mortgage underwater by $32,000. 2 car loans totaling $18,000. And Clara, your business has been operating at a loss for 8 months. Clara's lips parted, but no words came. Her cheeks flamed red. "This is an invasion of privacy," she snapped. I raised my voice for the first time in years. The same way you invaded mine when you decided I was too incompetent to handle my own lottery ticket. Silence pressed heavy against the walls. Ethan shook his head. Mom. Everyone has debt. It is normal. Not everyone charges their widowed mother $1,300 a month to live as unpaid domestic help. I answered. Not everyone plans to move her to the basement like unwanted furniture. I placed another sheet on the table. This is a breakdown of what I have paid versus what it would cost in a proper senior facility. You overcharged me by $600 each month and extracted $1,500 worth of unpaid labor. Cooking, laundry, childcare. That is over $25,000 a year. $50,000 in 2 years. From your own mother? Ethan's mouth opened, then closed. Clara's eyes filled with tears. But they were not tears of regret. They were the kind of tears people cry when they are caught. We never meant for it to be like that. Ethan whispered. We needed help. You thought I was too old, too grateful, too weak to see what you were doing. But your father saw it, and he made sure I would be protected. I laid down the final document. Notification of a trust fund. $500,000. Earning interest. Created by Richard. Waiting for the day I would need it. Clara gasped. Ethan looked as if the floor had dropped out from under him. Dad never said anything. He murmured. Because he hoped he was wrong. I said, he hoped you would treat me with love and respect. Instead, you treated me like a business opportunity. I stood, tucking the folder back into my purse. Where are you going? Clara demanded. To start my new life. I said, I have already placed a deposit on an apartment at Meadowbrook Senior Community. 2 bedrooms. Full kitchen. A space of my own. And it costs less each month than what I have been paying you. Ethan rose. Panic in his eyes. Mom. Please. You cannot just walk away. We need you. No. I said firmly. You need my money. There is a difference. Clara's voice cracked. What about the children? They will miss you. I softened. Just for a moment. I will always be their grandmother. But I will be their guest. Not their tenant. The clock on the mantel ticked loudly in the silence that followed. Finally, Ethan dropped back into his chair, and his face in his hands. Clara sat stiff, her tears drying into anger. I walked to the door. One more thing, I said, turning back. Since you will no longer have my pension helping with your bills, you may want to think about that $47,000 in credit card debt. I hear financial stress can be very hard on marriages. I stepped outside into the night air. Behind me, I heard Clara's sobs and Ethan's muffled voice trying to calm her. But their crisis was no longer my problem. For the first time in years, I was free. The next morning, the world felt new. Sunlight streamed through thin curtains. For the first time in years, I woke without dread. I packed slowly. Clothes folded into neat piles. Richard's photo album slipped into my suitcase. The lottery ticket stayed in my wallet, safe against my heart. Downstairs, I heard murmurs. Ethan and Clara whispered urgently, their words sharp, clipped. When I entered the kitchen, they went silent. I greeted them with a calm, good morning. Neither replied. I made toast, poured coffee, and returned upstairs. This house was no longer mine. I was simply a guest waiting to leave. By noon, the front yard filled again. 3 news vans lined the street. Reporters called my name through the glass. Mrs. Collins. When will you claim the prize? Will you share with your son? Clara darted to the door. Her smile practiced. She cracked it open and announced, Martha is resting. But as her family, we are thrilled. This is a blessing for all of us. All of us. Her favorite phrase, I stood on the stairs. Unseen. But my hands curled into fists. My phone buzzed non-stop. Church friends. Old co-workers. Even distant cousins. Everyone wanted to know my plans. What I wanted was quiet. What I needed was clarity. So I drove to David Harris's office once more. He had already drafted plans. When I sat across from him, he said, You are not alone. We will protect your interests. We will set boundaries. Thank you. David, I said, for the first time. I believe I can stand on my own again. He leaned forward. You have more power than you think. People see you as the woman who stood up for herself. If you choose, your voice could inspire many. I thought of the cameras outside the house. I thought of every elderly person watching, wishing for courage. Maybe, I whispered, maybe this is bigger than me. That evening I drove to Meadowbrook Senior Community. Brick buildings stood among tall pines, their roofs dusted with snow. Warm yellow light glowed from the windows. Laughter carried faintly from the main lounge. It did not feel like exile. It felt like freedom. Inside, the director greeted me kindly. The air smelled of fresh bread from the dining hall. Somewhere down the corridor, a piano played a gentle hymn. Residents gathered near the fireplace, knitting, chatting, sipping cocoa. Their laughter was soft but genuine. I had not heard warmth like that in a long time. She showed me an apartment with 2 bedrooms, a full kitchen, and a small balcony. The walls were freshly painted. The carpet smelled new. From the balcony, I could see the snow-laden trees swaying in the wind. This could be home, I thought. Not a guest room, not a basement, but home. The rent was less than Clara had charged me. And here, no one would demand my pension or my labor. Here, I would live as myself. I signed the papers with a steady hand. As the ink dried, a heavy weight lifted from me. For the first time since Richard died, I had a future of my own. Later that night, I returned briefly to Ethan's house. I needed to collect the rest of my belongings. Reporters still crowded the yard. Flashes lit the snow as I stepped from my car. Questions flew at me. Mrs. Collins, what will you do with the money? Will you cut ties with your son? I paused at the walkway, the cold stinging my cheeks. I looked into the cameras and said, I will live on my own terms. No one should be forced into a basement after a lifetime of love and work. No one should pay rent to be treated like a burden. I hope every person watching remembers. You are never too old to demand respect. The reporters pressed closer, their pens scribbling. Behind me, the door opened. Clara stood stiff, her smile painted on. Ethan hovered, pale, silent. I walked past them, up the stairs, and packed quietly. In the children's room, Ellie tugged at my sleeve. Grandma, are you leaving? I knelt and hugged her. Yes, sweetheart, but you can visit me anytime. I will always be your grandma. Her small arms clung to me. It nearly broke my heart. But freedom has a cost, and I was ready to pay it. When I carried my suitcase down, Clara blocked the door. You cannot just walk out, she hissed. People will think we mistreated you. I met her gaze steadily. They will think what they see, and what they see is the truth. I stepped outside. Reporters shouting, cameras flashing. Behind me, the door slammed. Ahead of me, the road opened wide. The following evening, the phone rang again. Ethan's voice came through, strained and pleading. Mom, please, can we talk? We should not end things like this. I hesitated, then agreed to meet in the living room one last time. I wanted closure, and I wanted them to hear the truth with no excuses left. When I arrived, Clara was already waiting, her eyes red, tissues balled in her fist. Ethan poured wine, his hands trembling. They looked less like victors now and more like children caught stealing. Mom, Ethan began softly, we made mistakes. We did not treat you fairly. But we can fix this. We can manage the money together. Clara slid a folder toward me. Inside were fresh spreadsheets, color-coded charts, and notes. Her voice was tender, almost desperate. This is a new plan. You will have full access. We will just help guide the decisions. I glanced at the pages, then closed the folder without a word. You have been planning for yourselves. Not for me. I said, you want control, not responsibility. Clara's tears spilled faster. No. Martha, We love you. We only pushed you because we thought you needed direction. For a moment, my chest tightened. Part of me wanted to believe her, wanted to believe that love sat underneath the manipulation. That was the red herring. The false note of hope, but Richard's voice echoed in my memory. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. I reached into my purse and pulled out another document David had given me. Evidence number 3. A breakdown of my so-called expenses in this house. I laid it on the table. For 2 years, I paid you $1,300 each month. I covered utilities, groceries, and repairs, and still, I cleaned. I cooked. I babysat. This paper shows what those services are worth. Each month, you gained almost $2,000 more than you provided. Do the math. That is over $50,000 taken from me. Ethan's face went gray. Clara pressed her lips together, her jaw stiff. You told your friends it was like monetizing your mother-in-law. I continued. I heard you, and I will never forget it. Clara buried her face in her hands. It was a joke, she whispered. I did not mean it that way. I stood. Yes, you did. And now everyone else knows too. Ethan reached for me again. Mom. Please. Do not destroy us. We can still move forward. I looked at him. My son. The boy I once carried on my hip through snowstorms. The boy who used to press his cold nose against my cheek and laugh. Now a man drowning in debt. Clutching at me like a lifeline. You already destroyed this, I said gently. You destroyed it when you chose greed over love. The room fell silent. The wine sat untouched. The folder of spreadsheets remained closed. I picked up my purse and walked to the door. From now on, I said, my lawyer will handle everything. If you need to speak to me, it will be through him. Clara lifted her head. Her face streaked with tears. You cannot cut us off like this. People will think we are monsters. I paused in the doorway, the cold draft brushing against my back. You did not need my help to look like monsters. You managed that on your own. Then I stepped out, closing the door softly behind me. The sound echoed like a gavel striking wood. Back at Meadowbrook, my new apartment glowed with warm light. Neighbors waved as I carried in my last suitcase. The walls smelled faintly of fresh paint. The balcony overlooked the pine trees, branches heavy with snow. I set Richard's photo on the mantel and whispered, we did it. Love. We made it out. But I knew one final confrontation remained. David had warned me. The truth about Ethan and Clara's debts would eventually surface. And when it did, they would come begging again. And this time, the entire town would be watching. The news spread faster than I could have imagined. Within days, everyone in Cedar Grove knew about the lottery ticket, and they also knew the story behind it. Headlines flashed across TV screens. Elderly widow, exploited by family. Lottery winner speaks out. Neighbors stopped me on the street, offering hugs, support, even applause. But the pressure on Ethan and Clara was growing heavier. Their debts were closing in. The credit card companies were calling. The mortgage company sent letters. They were unraveling. So one evening, they arrived at Meadowbrook. They stood in the lobby, looking small and fragile under the chandelier light. Mom, Ethan said, please, we are sorry. We need your help. Clara's voice cracked. We cannot survive without you. Please, just a loan. Just enough to cover the bills. I listened, my face calm. I told them I had arranged a meeting with David Harris tomorrow. If they wanted answers, they could hear them there. The next day, the 4 of us sat in David's office. His desk gleamed, the afternoon sun streaming through the tall windows. David adjusted his glasses and opened a folder. Ethan shifted nervously. Clara twisted her wedding ring. Mr. Harris, Ethan began, we only want what is best for Mom. We just need guidance. We can manage this together. David raised a hand, silencing him. That is not what this meeting is about. This meeting is about transparency. He pulled out the documents Richard had prepared. Your late father left instructions. David said, if Martha was ever pressured or exploited, I was to reveal everything. Ethan swallowed hard. Clara's hands trembled. Here are your debts. David continued, laying papers on the desk. 47,000 in credit card balances. 2 car loans totaling 18,000. A mortgage, 32,000 underwater. And Clara, your business has operated at a loss for months. Clara's face crumpled. Ethan buried his head in his hands. David was not finished. Your father anticipated this. He created a trust fund of $500,000. In Martha's name alone. It has been growing quietly for 2 years. Untouchable by anyone but her. The room went silent. The only sound was the clock ticking on the wall. Clara finally whispered, so all this time, she had money. And we, yes, David interrupted. And you chose to exploit her anyway. Now the public knows. And Martha holds not only the lottery ticket, but the truth. I stood, my purse in hand. I looked at my son. Once a boy who built snow forts in the yard, now a man bent by greed. I looked at Clara, her eyes full of fury disguised as tears. You thought you could bury me in a basement, I said softly. But Richard gave me wings. And now, with or without this ticket, I am free. Ethan lifted his head, tears streaking his cheeks. Mom, please, do not turn your back on us. I shook my head. I am not turning my back. I am walking forward. There is a difference. With that, I left the office. David closed the door behind me. His steady presence, a shield against their cries. Outside, the winter air was crisp and clean. Reporters waited once again. Their cameras ready. Mrs. Collins, what will you do next? I smiled into the microphones. I will build a new life. One where respect is not rented. One where kindness is not exploited. And I hope every person watching remembers. Justice can take its time. But it always arrives. Flashes burst. Voices shouted. But I felt only peace. That evening, I stood on my new balcony at Meadowbrook. Snow fell lightly, dusting the pine branches. Richard's photo sat on the mantel inside. Smiling at me. We did it. Love, I whispered. They tried to take everything. But in the end, we won. The doorbell rang. It was Ellie and Noah, my grandchildren. Their cheeks were pink from the cold, their arms full of flowers. Grandma, we wanted to see your new home. I knelt, hugging them tight. Here, I thought, was the part of family that mattered, the part untouched by greed. As they ran inside, their laughter filling the apartment. I knew the truth. The money was a blessing. But the real prize was freedom, and the strength to stand tall. Even when those closest to me tried to keep me small. I closed the balcony door, the snow swirling outside, and for the first time in years, I felt whole.